Science fiction is one of my favourite genres, not only in anime but in almost every medium. I just think sci-fi offers up that perfect mix of fantasy and reality. It opens itself up to creating new and interesting material while retaining a sense of realism. Sci-fi is an exaggerated imagining of real life, and that's why I think it's so intriguing. But like any other genre, there is a lot of rubbish to sift through, and it's quite hard to find shows that will tick all the boxes. So in this video I'm going to list 10 sci-fi anime that you have to watch. I won't be including any of the obvious big names, as chances are people will already have heard of them. So sorry Ghost in the Shell, Akira and Eva, you won't be getting a mention here. Let's kick things off with a classic. Super Dimension Fortress Macross, and yes, it is as epic as the name suggests. It started in the early 80s around the same time Gundam was taking off, and space operas in general were becoming one of the industry's hottest exports. Now this would normally calculate a recipe for repetition, normally popularity sparks formulas, but Macross has a lot more maturity and ambition than one would expect. With a very well written story, interesting characters and an imaginative scale, Macross goes the extra mile over its space opera brethren. With some production hiccups and some writing problems, it does come with its downsides, but I think it's a really solid product overall. Skip 20 years into the future and you see the fruit sprouting from the seeds of Macross's era, Eureka 7 being one of the best. It's everything the 80s mecha series gave us, only injected with a large dose of colour and flair. And it's packed with everything that makes the 21st century mecha show awesome. It's bright, it's loud and it's really solid. With fantastic production and a really warm story, it's one of the decade's most enjoyable and rewarding shows. Its sci-fi elements are a lot more exaggerated than some other shows, but the believable world you get inserted into makes it all come to life spectacularly. Metropolis has similar heritage. The 2001 film is a reimagining of Osamu Tezuka's 1949 manga, using similar classic aesthetics. Not only does it take on the classic look, but it completely absorbs itself in that atmosphere. Everything from the background art to the soundtrack feels really authentic. My favourite parts about the film were definitely its visuals, but that's not to say the narrative isn't worth mentioning. It does have a rather basic premise that invites criticism, but I personally think the well-structured and paced execution more than makes up for it. For me, the feeling of scale and immersion created by the film's visuals is reason enough to watch this one. Ergo Proxy is a personal favourite of mine. Its deeply philosophical undertones and epic dystopian setting make it one of the most unique anime series out there. It's quite easily one of the best uses of a science fiction premise I've ever watched. Thematically, it offers everything, from politics to psychology, exploring everything with a fantastic sense of subtlety that doesn't negatively affect the narrative. All of this combined with a brilliant art style and a really intricate world design makes Ergo Proxy one of my favourites from the genre. Ergo Proxy preferred the mysterious and the unknown values that the world brought by leaving out explanations in certain parts of the lore. Terra E, on the other hand, prefers to really immerse its viewer into the politics and history of its universe. I think this is one of the best space operas out there, which is impressive considering it's only 20 odd episodes. Based off a manga from the heyday of space operas, Terra E retains many of the classic values while evolving a modern day touch. It addresses a vast plane of content without feeling too rushed. Its fantastic writing really allowed it to broaden its horizon, covering a large time span and colossal amount of narrative content, all tucked together with a really nice visual wrapping. Legend of the Galactic Heroes carries even more ambition, and with 110 episodes to work with, is easily one of the grandest pieces out there. The way this series approaches sci-fi is fantastic. Although it's full of space wars and planet guns, it all feels completely real, as if the series is merely a look into the future. This is instrumental in immersing you into the series. I think anybody would have a hard time finding a series that tackled so much with such a high success rate, creating a colossal universe filled with politics and history. Truly one of the best sci-fi works available. Royal Space Force is certainly less ambitious in its focus. Instead of telling the story of generals at war, it tells the story of a group of rather insignificant people. Though that's not to say the movie falls short. In fact, the movie's interesting writing makes it incredibly touching. What makes this movie so memorable is its groundbreaking visuals. The detail and production of this film never fails to impress. It's such a unique story told in a really smart way. Visually represented fantastically, it's really one of the best sci-fi films out there. Like many of the entries on this list, Space Battleship Yamato 2199 is a reimagining of a classic, and once again it's a space opera. Yamato doesn't hold back in really capturing that classic feeling. If you like massive space battles full of lasers and drama, then this is the one for you. It also manages to produce a really awesome narrative. It takes a classic story, irons it out and condenses it into one series. Definitely a must watch if you're a fan of classic sci-fi or modern sci-fi. Even No Jikan is a big tone change from the rest of the list. Instead of massive space wars, it's full of conversations and cafes. Despite this more mellow premise, it's by far one of the most unique and interesting sci-fi anime out there. It does a number of things really well. It's gorgeously put together. Everything from the soundtrack to the scene pacing fits really well. It has very suitably written characters. They interact fantastically and make it a real joy to watch. And finally, it implements the sci-fi elements perfectly. With really subtle writing, it creates a great story that addresses futuristic plot points but feels completely real. Definitely a welcome change to the genre. Gunbuster is a short OVA series that has a much bigger influence on modern anime than you might think. At first glance it doesn't look too ambitious, but it's one of the early examples of what anime would become. These days the animation might not hold up as well, but the story and art holds up brilliantly. I'd urge everyone to go watch this and then go on to see how much modern anime takes from it. A brilliant point in anime's evolution. So I'm really interested in hearing what your favourites are, so post a few of your top sci-fi titles in the comments. Also, you can help me out by clicking the like button and sharing the video around. Remember to also subscribe if you haven't already and click some of the other videos on the screen. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.